Hey, this is Sheldon Primus with Primus Institute, and your online provider for OSHA compliance classes. Also, water and wastewater CEU courses, as well as water and wastewater and utility safety classes. Today, I'm going to do a quick session on the new record-keeping rules. There's been a lot of things going on with the new OSHA record-keeping rules, and not everyone is giving good information on this, so I want to make sure that you guys get as much of the most current information as possible. It is now into January 2017, so you do have compliance dates that start this year. So let's get right into it. So I'm going to go over what the record keeping rule is all about. And it is one of the big things that OSHA is doing right now to help with their workload. So a little bit about myself. I've been in the utility sector and safety sector for over 20 years. I am CEO of Primus Institute, as well as I have a company called Utility Compliance, and I have a company called OSHA Compliance Help for my public sector and private sector clients. I am an authorized OSHA instructor for the 10 and 30 hour in both general industry and construction. I'm a certified occupational safety specialist, COS. I have a master's in public administration with the concentration in environmental policies. I'm the president-elect of the South Florida American Society of Safety Engineers, ASSE, and I'm also a COS instructor as well. So that's a little bit about myself. Today our objectives, gonna just recall some of the changes from last year, January 2015. Actually, it's 2 years now. 2 years to, I can't say to the date, but 2 years to the month. Then also gonna give you guys some knowledge on the new rules, as well as some of the different aspects of this new rule that have taken effect, especially that last bullet of the objectives, understanding the anti-retaliation laws with this new rule. So I got a few other objectives in there. However, basically I'm going to kind of put together a picture of what this new ruling means to you, means to OSHA, as well as two other things that happen right around the same time that makes this rule even more important for you to understand. So the January 15, 2 years ago, OSHA says that you still have to report fatalities and catastrophes, but they kind of broke up what was a fat cat reporting, as we used to call it. Fat is the fatality portion. If there was a worker that expires at the facility or doing a job-related task, then you have 8 hours when you find out to let OSHA know that, yes, there's been a fatality, and here's our notification. However, within 24 hours, you're going to need to report if there is an incident of one or three things. One person gets hospitalized. It used to be 3, now it's 1. One loss of eye, or one amputation. So those are the 3 things that OSHA considers a catastrophe. So therefore, you're going to have to let OSHA know within 24 hours of you hearing this that, yes, this is a catastrophe. I have to alert OSHA. You don't have to report if you have a fatality or catastrophe that was related to some incident over the roadways, over airplane, trains, unless it's in an actual work zone, construction work zone. Then that is a recordable and reportable. Everything else is recordable, but not reportable. So here's a little overview of the new rules that are gone in effect starting January 1st of 2017 here. There are certain high-risk employers who will have to submit their injury and illness logs electronically if they fall between 20 workers and 249 workers. So that's a big window. However, if they're high enough risk then of an industry, then OSHA needs to know if there's any injuries through certain forms that they'll have to submit. Any company that is over 250, then they're going to have to report to OSHA annually. At first, this rule was going to be quarterly, but then they moved it to annually. Then those larger companies are going to have to report those injuries and illnesses. OSHA has this white paper out right now, and they went through the full year of what happened during that 2015 period, 1 year of recording. So they got 10,388 severe injuries reported, including 2,644 amputations and 7,636 hospitalizations. So an average of 30 workers injured every day of the year. And the bottom below tells you that most report injuries, 62%, were addressed by an employer investigation, not OSHA. So therefore, you as the employer, you're doing some of OSHA's jobs. Therefore, you're freeing up resources for OSHA. So that means this is a good thing. That's why they've gone a little bit further with it. So this new rule, and what this new rule means to you, is that OSHA is going out there and they're doing something, and here's a direct quote from Dr. Michaels. They're doing something a little different. So this direct quote says, "Our new rule will nudge employers to prevent work injuries, to show investors, job seekers, customers, and the public they operate safe and well-managed facilities. Access to injury data will also help OSHA better target compliance assistance and enforcement resources and enable big data researchers to apply their skills to making workplace safer." So that is the outgoing Assistant Secretary of Labor, who is also a head of OSHA. He has been quoted as saying that OSHA right now, with all their state partners and federal OSHA, if they had the full 2,400 inspectors go out into the 8 million workplaces, it would take 100 years to inspect each workplace. So they are buried in their workload. So one of the ways they're using to fix this is that they want to make sure that they will use this rule to have you self-report. So if you are self-reporting, then therefore it's saving OSHA. So this is a behavioral economics tactics. So imagine this. You want to go to a restaurant and you're trying to figure out which restaurant to go to. So now you're looking at department of whatever your health department is for your city or your county, and you see a health department rating of an A for a restaurant and a C for a restaurant. You are going to go to the A-rated restaurant because you don't want to get sick. You don't want to have food poisoning at what could be the C-rated restaurant's reason for being a C. And that's what OSHA is doing. With injury and illness records, total recordable injury rates, TRIR, days away restricted transfer rates, DART rates, experience modification rates, whatever you could glean from this information, those injury and illness records now are going to show how well you take care of your employees, and therefore it is grading you by those injury data. And that is what OSHA is saying is going to affect commerce. You are going to have competitors now saying, I have the best safety rating out of all the people in my industry. Or they're saying, and it's a little stretch, but they're saying that a job seeker could choose to go to your competitor versus you if your competitor is safer than you. I don't know, because it could trickle down to so many things. Let's say it's a slow news day, and now the reporters know that injury and illness data is completely open. They will remove personable identifiable information, which will go on a little bit later, but again, it is open to the public. So big key, and that's going to nudge, as Dr. Michael says, there's going to kind of lead a company to saying, I want to be the industry leader in safety. I want to protect my workers and safety. That's what they're hoping. Other people may say you're going to get some unrepresented numbers now because people are going to hide their data in order to protect themselves from the public. Who knows? It's something that we'll have to see. The record keeping rule still has some exemptions. So if your company has a DART rate that's very low as opposed to the 75% below the overall 3-year average of lost work cases, then you do not have to record. And there's a Appendix A to Subpart B in CFR 1904, which is the record keeping Code of Federal Regulations. If your name is listed in that appendix, then you are partially exempt. You do not have to record injury and illness data. If you have a small company, 10 or fewer employees during the whole calendar year, you also have a partial exemption due to your size. But it is based on the establishment is the company size. It is people you supervise day to day. So if you have a temporary workforce and you supervise that temporary workforce, they are now your employees. That goes against this number. So you may have 8 regular full-time workers and then 3 or 4 other workers that you have from a temp agency that you supervise daily, then this could be considered your workforce. So that is OSHA's rules. 1904-2 here, this is coming from that appendix. So these are industries that are covered, meaning that they are the ones who are exempt, partially exempt from record keeping. So here's some more that are partially exempt from record keeping. And while I'm leaving up the slide a little, partially exempt means that if there is an injury that hits the fatality or catastrophe, then that still has to be reported to OSHA. You can't not report because you're not exempt from reporting fatalities and catastrophes. You're just exempt from regular record keeping. If OSHA asks you, or the Bureau of Labor Statistics asks you for your records, then you have to give them the record. So that's another thing you're not exempt for. You have to give them that record. So electronic submittal. Let's start with the left side of this screen here. So the 20 to 249 employees for the highly hazardous industries, there's 67 that were identified. They will only have to do the 300A, which is a numbers, all summary of the events they had during the previous year. So everything in 2016 now is subject to the 20 to 249 employees, and that is for the 67 identified industries. They are going to have to submit their 300A summary logs. These logs still need to be posted from February 1st all the way to April 30th, but within that time period, that is a separate posting criteria. This is a submittal criteria that you're going to have to go on OSHA's website. You're going to have to go to their portal. You're going to identify your company, and you're going to submit this electronic data to them. Going to the right, again, your deadlines, you'll see July 1st, 2017 is your first deadline. Next year in 2018 will also be July 1st. But then at 2019 and after that, that deadline is going to shift up to March 2nd. So that is for all of your deadlines. Larger companies, 250 or more, they're going to have to do 300s, 301s, 300A forms, so that's all of OSHA's logs. So if you haven't done your 301 forms because you've been using a workers' comp form that was equivalent or greater, you're going to have to get used to seeing that 301 form again and start using that. So this year, July 2017, then you're going to have to do your 300A summary, and then after that, all your forms are going to be electronically submitted. So July 1st, 2018, and then that compliance date shifts up to March 2nd, starting 2019. Here's what these forms look like. And there is a full OSHA record-keeping course on Primus Institute. And this full record-keeping course on Primus Institute goes over these forms step by step to show you how to do it correctly. So I'll only show you briefly what these are. So right now you do have the 300 form in front of you. So this is the form that OSHA will see that, well, all of these forms if you're 250, but this is what happened, what the title is, where it happened, and you're just describing all the injuries on this form for each establishment, each physical location. Your 301 form for your injury and illness, this is the form that many people are using, the workers' comp form, and they may not have even used this 301 form before. Now you're going to have to get used to it because OSHA's format for the digitally submitted format is going to look like their log. So you'll have to know how to work each one of these columns and do it right. Again, I have that with the Primus Institute OSHA record keeping training. This is your summary form, so you can see in the summary form there's no distinguishable names, nothing that will tell you what happened to the person. All you're getting is numbers, just total numbers of whatever your incidents or accidents or deaths were for that previous year. So that's what your summary log is. This is the one that gets posted in the workplace March 1st till the end of April, that everyone should see in a highly trafficked area. So this is that 300A form. So the data that you're getting is going to have to be establishment specific, and it's going to be scrubbed of all personal identifiable information so that the workers are protected. Each state now will have to comply and adopt these rules within 6 months, and that is in February of 2017. All those other state plans will have to adapt to the federal OSHA. Here's the 67 high-risk industries as posted by OSHA. So these are, if you're 20 to 249, you now will have to submit records to OSHA because you're in the highest risk of injury and illnesses for your workers by your standard industrial classification code is one code that they have. They're not really using that as much as your other code, which is your NAICS code, which is North American Industry Classification System Code. That code is specifically for your industry. So if you are all in the performing arts, then you get the same code. Right here it says it's 7111, and in that system they'll know that that is you. You are performing arts due to this code. So let's go over what an establishment is. That's a big thing, and I hear it all the time. Do I need to keep records because I have a north facility, a south facility, an east facility, and each one only has 4 workers. So therefore you got a workforce of 12. Your firm has 12. Each establishment only has 4. You go with the firm size. So whoever the paycheck is, a paycheck going to each one of these establishments with the same letterhead, the same company, same payroll. Okay, it's your firm, not the establishment. So make sure that it's the complete, as long as ownership is the same, then you're the same firm. So that's basically what it is. So it's a firm versus the establishment. So please make sure you know the difference and that you're making, you're adding workers to a specific establishment, even if they go to each one of your establishments throughout the country or throughout the state. Doesn't matter. Assign them one establishment when it comes to record keeping. All right, knowing your rights about retaliation. This is a big one. So employers, they definitely must inform their workers about their rights. and they have to have a process, a procedure in place for employees to make injury and illness reports. And this process has to be easy. It can't be a deterrent in any way for them to report injury and illnesses. They can't be unreasonable in any way. It has to be easy, simple. They must know that they're not going to get in trouble in reporting injuries and illnesses. So OSHA really believes in this rights. This was in the OSHA Act, the Occupational Safety and Health Act, in when it was OSHA first got their jurisdiction to do this. So that was in 1970. So in Section 11C of this ruling now, OSHA has basically tweaked it a little bit more, and it's gotten a lot of people kind of upset about this one. So one of the things that OSHA says is the anti-retaliation rule stretches out, and they call it the whistleblower protection, to conducting drug testing with your company. So if your company requires everyone, no matter what the injury or illness is, to have a drug test, that may be breaking federal law, and you could be cited for it. So for instance, I get a bee sting. What does drugs have to do with me getting a bee sting? So therefore, if you're taking me out to get a fitness of duty test or a drug test because of a bee sting, that could be retaliatory, unless you are looking at workers' comp rules. And if your state has a workers' comp rule that specifically says after injury drug testing, and those are very tricky, so you really have to look in there to find out what your ruling says, if it's mandatory or not. Most are not mandatory, contrary to popular opinion, so you would have to look in there and see what your conditions are. That can be a retaliatory action. The mindset of OSHA is, if I'm using drugs and I've hurt myself and I know I'm going to get drug tested, I am not going to tell anybody, so therefore that hazard still is there, and it could be worse the next time. Instead of being hurt, someone could be killed or could have a catastrophe. So therefore OSHA is saying that this protection against reporting a hazardous condition must be something that the workers feel that they can be protected against, and that is why they're one of the reasons why they're using this. I'm going to stop this presentation here a little bit. Well, first let me read this part for you. If you do have a approved zero tolerance policy, or let's say you're drug testing because you want to stay compliant with workers' comp rules so you can get a certain discount on your policy, or you have DOT requirements, OSHA says that's okay. Do your testing like you've always done it. That's okay. We cannot supersede a state standard. They can't supersede, or at least they're choosing not to supersede, a workers' comp standard. However, if it's a policy that is in place because of bargaining unit, then that is different. OSHA says the bargaining unit does not have the same protection as they do in workers' comp boards, state or federal, mostly state boards, or some sort of other policy that is going to be compliant with state rules or federal rules. So before we get to that, I'm going to go over to my internet and show you guys where you can find some of this thing. So OSHA has their final rules right now. If you were to go to OSHA.gov and you were to go OSHA.gov/recordkeeping/modernization guidance or underscore guidance.html. So this HTML or this address will lead you to a question and answer. So they tell you about disciplinary actions, they tell you about incentive programs, then they tell you about drug testing programs. So these are all frequently asked questions, and they give you scenarios. So I would read these scenarios so you'll understand and not misunderstand what OSHA is trying to do here. So follow that link and look through some of these, and they're very informative. Another one that you want to go to, just released as January 13th, 2017. OSHA has recommended practices to promote workplace anti-retaliation programs. So OSHA, it looks over 22 whistleblower protection laws OSHA enforces. So this document is to guide each one of those 22 different type of agencies. And I'll click over here to show you what it is, and then I'll go back. But they are in charge of enforcing things on the Affordable Care Act, asbestos, hazard emergency response, the Clean Air Act, and it goes down, Railroad Act, and Food and Drug, safe drinking water. So all those things are they have whistleblower protection that OSHA, the administration, has to enforce, have to go out and just go try to protect those workers. So here are the 5 key elements: management, leadership, commitment, and accountability. Number 1, systems for listening to and resolving employee safety and compliance concerns, systems for receiving and responding to reports of retaliation, anti-retaliation training for employees and managers, and program oversight. If you were to click on this hyperlink, right here is another hyperlink to go to, but you'll give you a PDF, a 12-page PDF of full guidance on what they need to do for recommended practices. So that is the anti-retaliation ruling. So I'll get back over to the presentation. How is OSHA going to find you? They'll find you through complaints. When employees complain about things going on, or a workers' comp board calls OSHA and says, hey, we need your records on this because someone's trying to claim something that happened at your workplace, and OSHA says, hey, they're supposed to be recording this stuff. Now it's required that they report it, and they haven't. They got you. There's a Freedom of Information Act out there right now, and if a lawyer says my client needs this information that should have been reported, and now OSHA has no records, you can get fined, you can get cited. So you don't want that to happen. Then citations have gone up. I'll go through that a little later. How do you report? So you're going to report, there's a screenshot of what one looks like. So you do a serious reporting. There's an online form, and you can call the OSHA hotline. So 1-800-321-OSHA, which is 6742. So that is how you could get it, or your nearest OSHA office. So that's how you do it. I am not going to go over all the different steps of reporting. You're going to get this in the actual OSHA record keeping course. So I'm going to skip this portion here because you don't need that. However, what I am going to tell you is violations have gone up. And here's one from Ashley Furniture from 2015, $11,000 for not reporting an amputation. They got, that's 11,000. They got 1,100 for not doing the 300 log right, not doing the 301 log right. They got 1,100. And that's the link, so you know I'm not just picking on Ashley Furniture, but that's the link on OSHA.gov. So I will show you here, Congress in 2015, they passed the Bipartisan Budget Act of 2015, and they are made sure that not each, but many of the regulatory agencies can increase their fines from wherever they were frozen before, and they'll keep going up if inflation goes up. They'll stay the same if inflation goes down, and then they'll also stay the same if inflation stays the same annually. So therefore, OSHA has not raised their rates since 1990, so it's representative of a 78% increase in some cases, where now if you were to multiply a factor of 1.78, you're going to see these numbers go sky high. So serious max OSHA could have done before was 7,000. That is now 12,004 for a repeat violation or willful violation. $240,000, and that's per occurrence. So therefore, some things may be double or triple or whatever, depending on the case. So those fines have gone up. You can get a size adjustment to reduce the fines. So that's something you would want to do in an informal conference. So if you're on Primus Institute, there is a master class for OSHA compliance. And in that master class for OSHA compliance, we do mention several things about trying to reduce negotiation tactics to reduce any fines. So that'll behoove you to go through, take that class. It's an awesome class. DOJ, Department of Justice, and OSHA have an agreement together, and in their agreement, OSHA and the Department of Justice will take any citations a little bit further if not only was there a violation in the OSHA Act, but you're found to have done false statements, obstruction of justice, witness tampering, conspiracy, environmental, any kind of endangerment, up to 20 years, from 5 to 20 years incarceration, fines from the DOJ, and some other felony provisions. So you don't want to do this. So that's why OSHA has got more teeth to them right now. So it is a perfect storm with citations increase, the shaming of companies that do not have good work history of injuries and illnesses, and now your public information is going to be made public. This is the time to get OSHA compliant. This is the time to make sure that you're aware of record keeping rules. Make sure you're aware of how to be OSHA compliant. Make sure that you, if you're a business owner, that you know exactly what is required of you by law. And that is what you should do, because you need to know your rights. So at the time of filming, the most recent compliance letter is for Field Operations Manual. That is OSHA's playbook. If an inspector were to come out, you would look at the Field Operation Manual just to get you to know what's going on. That's Field Operation Manual 160. Again, if you take the Primus Institute course, you'll really get to understand your rights when it comes to informal conferences and your rights as an employer. The compliance letter here, CPL 0200-135, that one is specifically for record keeping. The one on the right side of the screen, that resource for you, is the OSHA Act. You could go to OSHA.gov under resources, under publication, excuse me. And once you get to the publication tab, just type in the OSHA Act, and you should get a PDF version of the OSHA Act, so again, you can know your rights. So in summary, the OSHA rules for the 1904 record keeping has been updated to include electronic submittals of injury and illnesses. So you want to be able to know your rights there, but know that your information will be public beginning 2017, this year. You will also have a period where the high-risk industries now, it's going to be, it's self-reporting is really what it is. So in the self-reporting, you may have some issues or kickback because of or pushback because of some people getting your data, and now they may have to vet you a little bit more. You could lose some work if that's the case, or you could gain work if you're doing really well and someone sees that your injury and illness records are far less than your opponents. So it's your chance now to be the industry leader. And then the fine's going up. So the fine's going up almost 80%. That's a big reason to stay OSHA compliant. Of course, you're going to have to go beyond OSHA compliance in the future. Start thinking about having an effective safety culture. That is a wonderful thing to do as well. So I want to thank you for spending the time with me. I want to direct you to the Primus Institute. It is primus.institute. So you can go to http://primus.institute. You'll find us there. And we have online compliance training for OSHA. We've got some utility training. We've got wastewater CEUs courses, Florida right now, but we're branching out more. Drinking water CEUs courses. Environmental courses are coming up. And just for taking the time and watching this, you are going to get 15% off of the OSHA record keeping course And you could do it by just typing in when it's time to check out Web 15, or you could follow this link. You could pause this video, type this link into an additional window, and then you could also find it that way. So let me show you what that one looks like so you could get a good look at the Primus Institute. So this is the home page for the Primus Institute. So you do primus.institute courses /courses. So you, as you can see in my top screen, I don't have that HTTPS. I just typed in primus.institute /courses. So this is all the courses we have available right now. However, I'm uploading a lot more as we get to it. They're all instructor-led. The OSHA record keeping is regularly $175, but for you guys taking this course, it is going to be reduced down to you by 15%, so it'll only be $148.75 for you. And this will give you a lot of information, gives you a little bit about myself, shows you all about 1904, and I broke it down into subparts for you, so you'll be easier to follow. So for just taking this course, type in that Web 15 and you will get 15% off, and you'll get all the information you need to keep yourself compliant. So I want to thank you very much.